T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger, roll, Atlantis. Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history. 24 seconds into the flight, roll program complete. Atlantis now heads down, wings level on the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Space Station. 40 seconds into the flight, the three liquid fuel main engines throttling back to 72% of rated performance in the bucket, reducing stress on the shuttle as it goes transonic for the final time. Engines now revving up, standing by for the throttle up call. Atlantis, go and throttle up, no action, DPDT.
Go and throttle up, no action on DPDT.
That call from Capcom Barry Wilmore, a transducer, instrumentation only, no action required. Atlantis now 15 miles in altitude, already 16 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 1 minute 40 seconds into the flight. Atlantis flexing its muscles one final time. Atlantis traveling almost 2,600 miles an hour, 21 miles in altitude, 24 miles downrange, standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Booster officer confirms staging a good solid rocket booster separation. Guidance now converging. The main engine steering the shuttle on a pinpoint path to its preliminary orbit. 2 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Atlantis already traveling 3,200 miles an hour, 35 miles in altitude, 50 miles downrange. The propulsion officer reports the orbital maneuvering system engines have ignited. Atlantis kicking on its afterburners for 1 minute, 23 seconds for the final phase of powered flight.
Atlantis, 2-engine towel.
Stayed with the International Space Station Sunday morning. Coming up on the 5-minute mark, Atlantis now traveling 6,500 miles an hour, 66 miles in altitude, 250 miles downrange.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
That call indicating we can make minimal orbital targets in the event of an engine failure. All three engines continue to function normally. Atlantis will begin its slow roll to a heads-up position shortly. 5.5 minutes into the flight. Atlantis traveling 7,700 miles an hour, 315 miles downrange.
Atlantis, single engine, ops 3.
Single engine, ops 3.
And the guidance officer here in Mission Control confirms that the computers are commanding the main engines to swivel.
Zaragoza, 104.
Single engine, Zaragoza, 104.
We've rolled to a heads-up position now, providing better communications to the tracking and data relay satellite system as Atlantis heads uphill. 6 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight.
Atlantis, press to Nico.
Press to Nico.
That call indicates that we can make our normal orbital cutoff targets in the event of an engine failure. However, all three main engines continue to function normally.
Nominal. Fergie, go to plus X, go to pitch.
On the shutdown plan, go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
That call indicating that we will be in good shape for the orientation of Atlantis for external tank photography following main engine cutoff. Now 7 minutes into the flight. One minute, 20 seconds till main engine cutoff. Atlantis traveling 12,000 miles an hour. The main engines will soon be throttling down once again to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 4 crew members to that of 3 times the effective gravity. Atlantis currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles a second. 1 minute of powered flight remaining for Atlantis. Three good main engines, 3 good auxiliary power units, 3 good fuel cells. Approaching the 8-minute mark into the flight. Atlantis now traveling more than 15,000 miles an hour. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, standing by for main engine cutoff. That'll be followed a few seconds later by the separation of the external fuel tank. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff. For the last time, the Space Shuttle's main engines have fallen silent as the shuttle slips into the final chapter of a storied 30-year adventure. Now standing by for external tank separation. Atlantis off the tank. Commander Chris Ferguson will be maneuvering Atlantis now into an orientation to enable Sandy Magnus to capture digital still imagery of the external fuel tank as it drifts away.
OMS 1 is not required. Your preliminary OMS 2 TIG, 37 minutes.
37 minutes, no OMS 1 required, thanks.
Six minutes from now. This is Mission Control Houston here in the Shuttle Flight Control Room. Post-insertion activities underway under the direction of Ascent Flight Director Richard Jones, second from your right, who presided over all of the work that was done associated with making sure that the weather was acceptable for launch from a return to launch site abort standpoint for the Spaceflight Meteorology Group. On the far right, Flight Director Tony Sacacci, he will preside over Atlantis' final entry 12 days from now. Butch Wilmore, Barry Wilmore, the Capcom, the spacecraft's communicator, in the dark shirt, and on the far left, Lee Archambault, the astronaut who was in direct contact with Deputy Chief Astronaut Rick Sturckow. Sturckow was assessing the weather and real-time observations as he flew the shuttle training aircraft around the vicinity of the Kennedy Space Center in the final hours prior to launch. Handshakes all around here in the Shuttle Flight Control Room. As we move into the post-insertion time frame, the initial phase of getting Atlantis set up for orbital operations, the countdown clocks here in Mission Control currently ticking backward to the first firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines in what is known as the OMS 2 burn, just a bit under 22 minutes from now. That will begin to raise the orbit, the apogee of Atlantis' orbit. Essentially, the launch itself was the first rendezvous maneuver to catch up to the International Space Station for a docking on Sunday morning. With Atlantis in the early minutes of its final flight, and the final flight in the history of the shuttle program, we're going to go back down now to the Kennedy Space Center at the launch site for replays of today's launch that occurred at 10:29 a.m. Central Time.
TIG, a 37:45, we like that, and no deltas, the 3-6 or 3-7.